help for your food addiction and you don't know where to start? Welcome to the series, The Food Addiction Frontlines, where we uncover the expertise and services available for overcoming food addiction. I'm Dr. Vera Tarman, an addiction physician specializing in sugar and ultra-processed food addiction, here to introduce you to the professionals making a difference in this field. In each 15-minute episode, we'll meet leading experts. They will share their journey, their training, and the unique services that they provide for all who struggle with food addiction. So let us help you find the treatment that is best for you. Today, we speak with Vanessa Kredler. Welcome.
Hi, Vera. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for having me.
Tell me, what inspired you to specialize in food addiction treatment?
A lived experience is the short answer. I came into food recovery myself 16 years ago, and I was in a really bad state. And at the time, there was very little help. Nobody was talking about food addiction. And so there was little help apart from the 12 steps. And that gave me a lot of recovery. And as soon as I went into my own 12-step work, my own therapy, I started coaching and counseling training in parallel because I knew that was going to be a very meaningful journey for me. So I didn't see clients until much later, but I started training in parallel.
Great. Can you tell us more about your training and qualifications in food addiction?
Here in Australia, I'm a clinical counsellor with the Psychotherapy and Counselling Federation of Australia. And I started off with a counselling diploma, majoring in addictions, and that was then followed by a coaching qualification with the Coaching Institute here in Australia. And then eventually in 2018, I graduated from INFACT, the International School of Food Addiction Counselling and Treatment. And I studied with yourself, Vera, as well as Esther Helga and Bitten Johnson and Phil Wardell. And that was an amazing experience. And then working with clients, I started off as a recovery coach. My practice at the time was called Food Freedom Coaching. And I soon discovered that I needed to equip myself to hold clients in doing the deeper work, because that was something that was always coming up for them and also for myself in my own recovery and my own therapy. And so I completed a Master's of Counseling and have since trained in internal family systems therapy with the IFS Institute as well. I've undertaken a whole bunch of trauma-focused training because that is a real focus for me. So deep brain reorienting, polyvagal informed therapy courses to help people support their nervous systems. I'm also credentialed with the Australia and New Zealand Academy for Eating Disorders, so I continue to keep up to date with more traditional eating disorder approaches such as CBT and DBT and interpersonal psychotherapy. I'm a qualified yoga teacher, so I bring in a fair bit of somatics and mindfulness skills into my work as well. And just this year, I've trained as a clinical supervisor for counsellors in Australia. And then the last couple of points about my qualifications is that I've got a lot of knowledge in the 12-step programs because I'm quite blessed with multiple addictions. So I've gone through quite a few 12-step programs myself and understand that peer group environment very well, and all the tools and the different kind of techniques and practices that they recommend and that have helped me a lot. And I've also published a couple of peer-reviewed articles here in Australia, one about food addiction and another one about memory reconsolidation, which is the neurobiological process that leads to transformational change. And that is something that I'm very passionate about in the context of IFS therapy. Generally, whatever I do with clients, whatever I bring to my work, I've done it myself as a client usually because I use myself as a bit of a guinea pig and I do a lot of inner work myself.
What type of services do you provide for individuals struggling with food addiction?
I do a range of things. So one-on-one therapy is still my biggest component of my practice at the moment. I also run a signature 4-week group a couple of times a year, which is in relation to food addiction recovery and internal family systems. And that's where people learn to basically understand their parts, map and befriend their parts that are related to their addictive process. And so that builds more internal capacity for self-compassion and inner harmony between those parts. And then I run a weekly group, Parts Circle, it's called, and that's where we do a guided meditation and self-practice and in relation to parts work and some group sharing as well. And I have some mini courses on my website too in relation to addiction, in relation to IFS, emotion regulation, and guided meditation. So those are some of the things that I do at the moment.
What would you consider to be a strength or a unique quality that you, our community?
Well, I would say that probably I cater to clients who might have been disappointed by eating disorders treatment. And what often happens is people read my story and my lived experience blogs on my website, and they gain this identification with the term addiction or addictive eating. And so they identify with that and they come to me. The other strength is that I treat other addictions by default as well, because a lot of people discover that food is not their only outlet. So I work with people on workaholism, codependency, sex and love addiction, internet addiction, and similar process addiction. So that is very common in my practice too.
Any limitations?
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly, I struggle with the lack of credibility of the concept of food addiction in the eating disorders field here in Australia. So I have a handful of lovely, supportive colleagues, but it is still a struggle to wanting to try and collaborate with that field and open up the viewpoints around food addiction. That's a struggle here.
You see people outside of Australia. So might a limitation be just the hour difference? Like if an American wanted to see you, how would you work that?
Yeah, that can be a limitation too. We just make do with it. So I do have a few morning slots for international clients, depending on where they are. Sometimes I refer on as well. It depends on what works and where people are located and what support networks they have. But yes, time difference is an issue that I'm so used to. I don't even see it as a limitation anymore.
Now you coexisting issues, codependency and shopping and sex addiction, but what about psychiatric illnesses? How do you deal
Mm.
with that?
That's very common in my practice because I also see clients who don't present with food addiction. So I see people with diagnoses such as complex trauma or borderline personality disorder or anxiety and depression. And sometimes that is co-occurring with addiction. I find that all of my trauma training, as well as internal family systems in particular, is very helpful for that. And often people already have a psychiatrist or a general practitioner that they're working with and they're just seeking a counselor. That's very common in my practice.
Do you work with the family as well?
Not really. I work with individuals, but what often happens in my practice is that we do role play in terms of what do I need to communicate to my family to get the support that I need? What is this thing called food addiction? And so we role play in terms of how do I assertively communicate, and we practice those skills. And sometimes I refer people to a couple of clinics here in Sydney that do have family programs as well, or Al-Anon as well.
Yeah, you rely on the 12-step programs as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Personal strategies for your own well-being. How do you
Mm.
not get in the way of your clients?
Yes, I do a lot in terms of inner work myself. So I think I'm lucky in that way that I'm quite into this kind of work. Somehow I've made my whole life around this, and I do love that inner exploration. I do a lot of that in my own practice for myself. First of all, professionally speaking, I'm in various supervision groups. I have various supervisors in different fields like IFS or food addiction and just general supervision. I also am a member of various peer groups to keep myself out of my client's way, so to speak. I also have a lot of self-care practices. For example, I have a food plan, which is the cornerstone of my recovery. And I have daily movement and reflection time, which I absolutely need. I have a rich spiritual life and a very good sleep hygiene because my sleep and my nervous system overactivity is something that I'm constantly trying to support as much as I can. And it's an ongoing journey, I think, for us as professionals. So for me, for example, at the moment, I'm reviewing my food plan with an Ayurvedic health professional because I'm in menopause. I have irritable bowel issues. It's an ongoing journey. I also do my own therapy as an ongoing journey. I do the internal family systems, body work, lots and lots of different things all the time.
Okay. For people listening who want to know more about IFS, we actually have a Food Junkies podcast talking about that with Vanessa. I'll put it in the show notes so people can listen. Anything else that I haven't asked that you'd like to showcase about your program?
Yeah. I think I'll just say that I think what makes my work unique is, and I'm quite proud of it, and I love that part of my work so much, is work across two lanes. So I'm both qualified as a coach as well as a therapist. And so basically I can straddle the practical coaching in terms of what are my triggers, how do I develop coping strategies with the more deeper work that often needs to happen when we do trauma work or when we have attachment wounds. And so we go more into the deeper emotional work that so often comes up. And what's wonderful also about internal family systems is that it's really good at uncovering the blockages that people have. So for example, if you're being coached and you're getting all these amazing strategies, you know what to do, but there is a blockage inside around why am I not doing that? And usually it's because there are some parts that are not on board with what the strategy is meant to be, what the coaching strategy that I've been taught is meant to be. And so if we don't address those parts concerns, we're not going to be able to stick to any strategies. Yeah, I love that part of the work, and shifting between the two lanes is really important, I find, in the treatment.
Great. How can people find out about you?
Best is my website, which is vanessakredler.com. So that's very easy. And you can just get in touch via email or via my phone as well.
Thank you. Any last words of hope or inspiration to leave the listener?
Yes, absolutely. I would say that if you are coming into food addiction recovery, if you're pursuing goals such as being sugar-free, a lot of us are ashamed about that because it's not really accepted in society just yet. But I would say things are going to change and we're actually trendsetters. I would say don't be ashamed, feel confident, feel pride, because in 3, 5, 10 years, it's going to be like tobacco. And I think we're not going to be eating sugar and ultra-processed food as much as right now.
Well, thank you very much, Vanessa.
Thank you very much, Vera. Thanks for having me.
Sugar is the enemy, corrupting the minds of the teens, expelling you not to foresee. Your body's your temple, your mind is your key to a life tapped into happiness. Have it, don't dream it, if only